Revealed, the emotional moment when a millionaire discovered her incredible secret at age 25, Claire Miller stared at the trunk, the warped wood and rusty hinges seeming to taunt her, beckoning her closer. Rain pounded against the attic window, accompanying the frenzied rhythm of her heart. Inside this cherished relic lay the remnants of her grandmother's life, a woman whose quiet brilliance had always seemed a shadow around Claire. As she pried it open, the smell of aged paper wafted out, mingling with the scent of nostalgia and something else potential. Before Claire knew it, she was diving into her grandmother's past. Pages filled with diagrams and patents unfolded before her, revealing a visionary mind that had remained nearly invisible in a world that favored men and conformity. Claire felt something stirring deep within her, a strange mix of longing and unease. Can I dare to dream like this? Can I bear the weight of her legacy? Her hands trembled as she sorted through the green velvety cushion and brittle parchment. Her family's voice echoed through her thoughts: success is modest, they say, built on hard work, not ambition alone. The words curled around her like chains, holding her back even as her spirit soared. She craved approval from her parents, who had sacrificed for her, but their vision of success left little room for flights of fancy. Did she owe it to them to tread carefully, to stay within the safe confines of her librarian role? The contradiction gnawed at her with each journal entry she read. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Claire's thoughts spiraled as she envisioned stepping into the world of entrepreneurs. Each visit seemed to throb with harsh brightness, where polished people sneered at her upbringing. They didn't see the hours she spent poring over her grandmother's blueprints, nor the dream that bloomed while standing in libraries among books whose characters had no boundaries. She couldn't help but feel out of place. But as she clutched the documents tight, a fiery determination blossomed within her. Weeks turned into months of fear-laden courage as she leaned into the challenge of launching her grandmother's kitchen gadget, a tool designed to ease the chaos of cooking. The journey felt tumultuous. With every setback, Claire questioned everything: her worth, her intelligence. Should she pursue a dream that felt unworthy in her parents' eyes? Every day brought her face to face with a choice: remain the bookworm or transform into the inventor. But betrayal twisted in her gut as a friend she once trusted took the design and attempted to claim it as his own. Claire felt bone-deep fury, the kind that could fuel vengeance but also gnawed painfully at her insides. Should she retaliate, embrace the cutthroat nature that success seemed to beckon? Or seek the integrity her family had instilled in her? As she faced the crossroads of vengeance and loyalty, Claire felt the suffocating weight of expectations crashing down, a tempest inside the confines of her heart. Doubts about her worth whispered louder than her dreams. In that pivotal moment, as she gathered her resolve, Claire stood on the precipice of a fateful decision that could reshape her entire existence. The air crackled with unresolved tension, waiting for her to choose. Would she forge ahead with vulnerability, or shield herself with anger? With a deep breath, Claire clenched the papers in her hand, feeling the crinkle of her grandmother's dreams beneath her fingertips. She didn't want to succumb to anger, yet the betrayal weighed heavily. Her body buzzed with the pressure of opposing forces, creativity and cynicism battling for dominance within her. What would her grandmother do? A phrase echoed in her mind, a lesson from the past: kindness is the armor, not anger. This mantra felt like a lifeline. Claire knew she had to confront her former friend, Blake. Not for revenge, but for her own clarity. She needed to face the truth directly, to see things for what they were rather than what her anxiety painted them to be. In the dim light of her cramped apartment, she paced. Stripped of the noise of judgment, she rehearsed her lines. She wouldn't give in to the bitterness coursing through her. Instead, she would stand firm in her intent and the integrity he tried to undermine. Meeting Blake was nerve-wracking. Each click of her heels against the pavement felt like a countdown, each deliberate step forcing her to focus on the task ahead. Was she ready to expose her vulnerability, the very essence of her journey? But the moment she walked into the coffee shop, the familiar scent of roasted beans and the murmur of voices enveloped her like a hug, emboldening her resolve. This was a new chapter, one she was writing herself. She spotted Blake at a corner table, his casual demeanor evoking memories of their shared projects and late-night brainstorming sessions. As she approached, Claire felt the weight of resentment bubble up, but she squashed it down. The conversation was going to be challenging, but it was necessary. "Blake," she began, her voice steady. "We need to talk." The initial exchange buzzed with tension. Claire confronted him about the design, laying bare her disappointment and confusion. The sting of betrayal cut deep, but as Blake fumbled through half-hearted justifications, Claire's feelings shifted. She realized she held power in her response. She didn't want to lash out, she wanted to reclaim her narrative. "Your action doesn't define my worth, nor does it dictate my success," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I refuse to allow this to derail me. My grandmother believed in creating with purpose, not in thievery." For the first time in their conversation, she saw Blake's confidence falter. Her sincerity caught him off guard, mere silence filling the space where he expected a fight. In that moment, Claire recognized an untapped reserve of strength. By choosing not to retaliate, she not only protected her grandmother's legacy but also liberated herself from the confines of her upbringing. Her parents' expectations washed away like the last remnants of a storm, revealing a bright potential for the future. Leaving the coffee shop, she felt lighter, as if discarded chains had been cast aside. Claire considered her next move strategically. She had designs to protect and a dream to nurture. The road ahead twisted, but she was no longer afraid. With renewed clarity, she would focus on her invention, build her brand, and learn the industry's laws. Failure might still lurk around every corner, but now it felt like a part of the journey rather than an endpoint. Her thoughts spiraled toward what validation might look like on this new path, allowing a flicker of excitement to bloom. Had she unlocked a different version of herself, an entrepreneur unafraid of challenges? As she reached home, adrenaline surged through her veins. Her grandmother's blueprints were waiting, so vibrant, so full of potential. With determined energy, she flipped open her laptop, ready to dive back into the designs. But as Claire began her work, her phone buzzed with a notification that made her heart race. A direct message from a respected entrepreneur in her field, inviting her to discuss her ideas. This was an opportunity that could change everything. Shaking off the remnants of caution, she quickly typed a response, unsure of where this could lead, but ready to confront whatever awaited her. Next. Would this meeting be the key to unlocking the future she envisioned, or another challenge to overcome? Claire's heart pounded as she stared at the glowing screen, her fingers hovered over the keyboard. The message from Jenna Emerson, a name that evoked a mixture of awe and intimidation, seemed too good to be true. Jenna was a trailblazer, a woman who had shattered ceilings and turned visions into profitable realities. In the world Claire aspired to inhabit, Jenna was a legend, and now, she wanted to talk. Doubt crept in as quickly as the thrill had surged. What could she, a novice with burnt bridges and raw dreams, possibly offer to someone like Jenna? She shook her head, forcing her mind to reset. This was an opportunity, not a trap. With a few deliberate keystrokes, she confirmed the meeting. Instantly, a flood of questions raced through her mind. How did one even prepare for a conversation with someone who had reached such heights? Sugar-coated ambitions wouldn't suffice. Claire needed to strip away any facade of insecurity and get to her core. For the first time, she began to see the designs in front of her not just as a tribute to her grandmother, but as a powerful declaration of her identity. As the seconds ticked away leading to the meeting, Claire busied herself with refining her pitch. She laid out the ideas, mood boards, materials, and sketches, each reflecting her vision. The designs had become a tapestry of her struggles, vibrantly stitched with determination. The gallery where the meeting would take place was unlike any place she had ever entered. Glass walls, soaring ceilings, and art that sparked conversation. As she arrived, her breath hitched. This was a realm where dreams flourished, and she was a newly sprouted seed amid towering trees. The environment felt starkly different from her cramped apartment, echoing with possibilities. Jenna was seated at a minimalist table, her presence commanding yet inviting. Claire's stomach danced with a cocktail of nerves and anticipation. Small talk punctuated their initial moments together, but Claire was focused. She quickly transitioned to sharing her ideas, her voice burgeoning with passion as she spoke about the intricacies of her designs. But there was something deeper at play. She was not just sharing her designs but revealing the story behind them, the love and loss interwoven within each line. Jenna listened, her gaze attentive and thoughtful. Claire sensed that this wasn't just a meeting of minds, it was a moment of connection, an unveiling of vulnerability that could transform doubt into inspiration. Halfway through their discussion, Jenna leaned in, her eyes piercing. "Have you ever considered what sets your work apart, Claire? It's not just your grandmother's legacy, it's your unique voice." The question hit Claire like a bolt. She had been so immersed in proving her competence that she hadn't allowed herself the luxury of introspection about her identity. She had been afraid to highlight her unusual perspective, hesitant to embrace the very experiences that shaped her. "I suppose I've been trying to escape my background instead of leveraging it," she admitted, a mix of embarrassment and clarity washing over her. "Your story is your strength," Jenna replied, a slight smile breaking through her professionalism. "Harness it. Let it drive your vision. It's not about perfection, it's about authenticity." Claire felt like a dam had broken within her. The realization that she didn't have to fit in a mold but could carve her own path invigorated her. Jenna's words resonated, igniting a fire within. She needed to focus not just on the designs but on the narrative they carried and the mission driving her work. As the session wrapped up, Jenna encouraged her to take bold risks, reminding her that the industry thrived on innovation born from passion. "Let us keep in touch, Claire. I want to see where your journey takes you." Walking out of that gallery, Claire felt a rejuvenated sense of purpose. She had entered seeking validation but found something far more valuable: self-acceptance. Somewhere along the path of navigating betrayal and insecurity, she had found her authentic voice. But as she reached her car, another notification pinged on her phone. The sender was unknown, but the subject matter was ominous: "I know about your project. You need to be careful." What hidden dangers loomed in the shadows, threatening to topple the newfound confidence she had cultivated? Claire sat in the driver's seat, heart racing, the weight of the notification hanging in the air like an unwelcome specter. Her hand trembled ever so slightly as she picked up her phone again, the screen glowing menacingly beneath the parking lot lights. "I know about your project. You need to be careful." Who was this person? Whose shadow loomed behind such a message? Clenching her jaw, Claire inhaled deeply, trying to douse the rising tide of panic. She had felt invigorated just moments before, armed with the fiery words of Jenna Emerson, who had urged her to let her story shine. Yet, here she was, wrestling with shadows, wondering if her fragile confidence could withstand external threats. The drive home anchored her thoughts, allowing the adrenaline to ebb. She resolved to approach the ominous warning as a problem to solve, not something to consume her. After all, this wasn't the first time Claire had faced adversity. Despite being burned in the past, she couldn't afford to retreat back into the quiet shell of her insecurities. The lessons embedded within her designs would remain, and they would guide her. Once inside her apartment, she settled at her modest table, spread out her sketches, and turned her mind back to her designs. As her pencil danced over the paper, Claire found clarity. Each stroke reminded her of the heartache and perseverance she had woven into her work. Each design now held a purpose beyond aesthetics. She wasn't merely creating, she was making bold statements, but that message continued to echo in her thoughts like a relentless drumbeat. She needed to understand who wanted to harm her and why. The prospect of her project being under scrutiny forced her to consider her next steps with caution. This was no longer just about making a name for herself. It was about protecting the vision, the story, and the very essence of her identity that she had only recently begun to embrace. Late into the night, Claire researched, combing the internet for clues about anyone who might be watching. She retraced her steps and her correspondences, thinking back to every interaction she had about her project. The patterns began to reveal themselves, not just in potential adversaries, but in her own motivations. The fear of discovery mixed with the adrenaline of ambition, each search fueled a determination she never knew existed within her. Who would dare sabotage her when she was finally starting to elevate her voice? The prevailing question morphed into a challenge. She would not be a victim, she would be proactive. The spotlight she craved wasn't just a way to showcase her design talent, but also an arena to address the realness of her journey. The next morning, courage burst forth. Claire reached out to Jenna, explaining the bizarre threat and seeking her guidance. Jenna had faced her own share of industry controversies. Perhaps she could offer insight into navigating the tumultuous waters ahead. When a response came a few hours later, Jenna's words were both pragmatic and encouraging. In our line of work, whispers can be louder than shouts. Confront what you can, but also create a shield around your ideas. Let us meet again. And just like that, Claire felt a flicker of hope spark again. She acknowledged that if this project was worth fighting for, it deserved her strongest strategies. Claire dove back into her designs with unabated fervor, each curve and line a testament to her resilience. This pursuit was more than mere ambition, it was a legacy. She decided to blend her designs with an empowering narrative that could resonate with others facing similar fears, but just as she was starting to feel in control, another message popped up, this time more cryptic, almost threatening. You think you can hide? I see you. Claire's pulse quickened once again as she read each chilling word. The ground beneath her newfound confidence began to tremble, propelling her into a spiral of questions. Who was this person? What did they want? And would her voice echo loud enough to drown out the threats? She was about to find out. Claire sat hunched at her table, the glow of her sketches blending with the ominous light of her phone. That last message weighed heavily on her mind, an unshakable reminder that she wasn't merely entering a professional arena but stepping into a minefield of unseen threats. Each curve of her design suddenly felt less like a soft stroke of inspiration and more like a target, available for anyone to critique or steal. Was she underestimating someone's reach? What if this cryptic messenger was closer than she assumed? Her pulse raced as she recalled Jenna's advice about whispers. She needed to fortify her defenses, but how? Claire surveyed her sketches, the colored pencils beside her serving as silent advisors. She had spent years fighting her way to this moment, gleaming visions teeming with stories. This was her statement, her voice, her life on paper, but now the reality of that life felt precarious. Driven by a renewed determination, Claire shifted her focus from fear to strategy. First, she carefully organized her ideas, prioritizing those that held the most significance. She began documenting not just her designs but the inspirations behind them, personal experiences, narratives that linked her to the pieces unfolding on the page. This wasn't just about aesthetics. She could deepen her work by fusing it with elements of her identity, telling her story through her creations. It would transform her collection into a formidable fortress against the unknown threats looming outside. Next, Claire reflected on her network. She had built connections to help her rise, but had she also cultivated enough allies to counteract potential sabotage? Her phone buzzed again, but this time it was an alert from her art community. A new gallery was opening nearby, an opportunity to showcase her talent and perhaps find like-minded creators whom she could trust. It was the perfect venue to stretch her wings, both for her art and her burgeoning reputation. She quickly jotted down the details, her mind racing with possibilities, yet, she also understood that the meeting with Jenna was paramount. Jenna's experience in the field might provide insights that could help ensure both her project and her well-being. Claire's self-awareness deepened. She needed guidance on how to navigate not just the career challenges ahead but also the personal fears gnawing at her confidence. What if this threat was a test of resilience? If she emerged stronger, she could use her experience to inspire others, further enriching her narrative and solidifying her role as an advocate for those whose voices were silenced. Within hours, Claire had managed to schedule a meeting with Jenna at the gallery opening. Her heart fluttered with anxiety, but also anticipation. This was not just a confrontation of fears, but the crafting of a strategy, an intersection of art and resilience. She envisioned standing confidently in front of her work, articulating its significance, the darker undertones of her message bolstered by her unwavering spirit. As the day drew closer, Claire instinctively prepared herself for the dual nature of her existence, an artist and a strategist entwined in the same body. She reflected on the message that haunted her thoughts. What if it was a catalyst pushing her into her next phase of growth? Perhaps she could metamorphose the shadows into something that illuminated her path forward. Just as she began to feel a sense of control, her phone vibrated yet again. Another message had arrived, and this one sent a chill down her spine. You think art will shield you? What if I told you I hold the key to your success? Anxiety flickered back to life. What did this person know? How had they intruded into her world? Was there more than one threat? With her pulse rapid and her instincts sharpened, Claire knew she was on the brink of a reckoning. She needed answers. The time had come to confront the shadows lurking beyond her sketches. She was ready to meet whoever hid behind the veil of anonymity and to find the strength within her that had begun to flourish. Looking at her sketches anew, she clenched her fists, determination flooding her. Whatever was unfolding, she would face it head-on, aware that every brushstroke in her life carried the weight of her truth. Claire paced her studio, her hands twitching with anticipation. The message had ignited a fire within her, forcing her to assess her situation more critically. Who was this person lurking in the shadows, claiming to hold the key to her success? The idea was as unsettling as it was intriguing. Could this be someone from her past, or was it merely another random threat? Questions swirled through her mind as she fought to keep anxiety at bay. The gallery opening had become more than just a showcase for her art, it was now a strategic battlefield. She needed to gather insight, not only from Jenna's expertise but also from the other artists attending. Relationships had to be carefully cultivated, alliances forged under the guise of admiration rather than desperation. As the day approached, Claire felt momentum building. She meticulously planned her evening, every detail mattered, from her outfit to the way she would present her work. This was her moment to shine, but it wouldn't come from just displaying beautifully crafted designs. She had to showcase the stories behind them, exposing the depths of her struggle and the triumph that came from her vulnerability. On the night of the event, the gallery buzzed with excitement, a sea of voices intermingling in shared passion. Claire arrived early, allowing herself a moment to breathe and absorb the energy. The walls radiated light, illuminated by her creations, each piece reflecting layers of her journey. She took a deep breath, mentally listing her goals, gather information, connect with fellow artists, and, above all, prepare to confront Jenna with questions that had been gnawing at her. As attendees began to trickle in, Claire spotted Jenna across the room, engaging with a small group. Claire's heart raced. She was a beacon of experience, someone who had faced similar battles. Yet even from a distance, Claire felt her own insecurities prickling at her confidence. What if Jenna couldn't provide the answers she craved? The first interactions she had were awkward, but each conversation chipped away at her trepidation. Artists shared their stories, revealing struggles that mirrored her own fears. Claire found herself both inspired and frightened. How many hidden narratives were lurking behind each piece on the wall? It was evident she was not alone, every artist seemed to carry their own weight of shadows. It was a shared vulnerability that bound them together, but also a reminder that she had to carve out her unique space. Finally, Claire made her way to Jenna. She felt her heart race as she approached, uncertain of what to say. Jenna turned, her eyes lighting up at the sight of her protégé. "Claire! Your work looks incredible," Jenna exclaimed, genuine admiration evident in her tone. "Thanks. Can we talk?" Claire's voice was steadier than she felt. Jenna nodded and they moved to a quieter corner. Claire began to share her art stories, detailing the emotions entwined in each piece. She couldn't help but notice Jenna's focus, the way her mentor leaned in, absorbing every word as if weighing the importance of her narrative. Then it was time. Claire took a breath and asked, "Jenna, what do you think about the message I received?" do you think it could be more than just a personal attack? A strategic move? Jenna's expression darkened, and Claire glimpsed a flicker of something deeper than mere concern. There are forces in this industry that manipulate and scheme, Claire. You must be wary. Sometimes those threats come from where we least expect. The tension between them tightened, hanging in the air as Claire wrestled with uncertainty. Jenna's cryptic warning could mean dangerous games lay ahead. Just then, a figure in the crowd caught her eye, someone wearing an ambiguous smile. Familiar, yet unsettling. The chill from earlier crept back into her spine. Could this person be linked to the anonymous message? Determined, Claire steeled herself. She realized this was not merely about overcoming threats but revealing her own strength. The right path lay in deciphering the shadows before her. The evening had just begun, and the stakes had never been clearer. As she stepped forward into the fray, an undeniable realization struck her: reckoning was coming, and she needed to be ready to confront whatever lay hidden behind the facade. She locked her gaze on the figure and, heart pounding, prepared to dig deeper into the truth. Whatever the outcome, Claire was determined to reclaim her narrative. The exciting revelation of who this person was loomed ahead, but would it offer clarity or further complications? Claire's pulse quickened as she waded through the crowd, her instincts on high alert. The figure who had unsettled her was no mere stranger. His knowing smile was something she had encountered before, a shadow from her past re-emerging. Anxiety and determination danced within her, magnified by the pulse of the gallery, which hummed with excitement and apprehension. She needed to act, to learn, to confront. As she moved closer, her mind swirled with questions. Who was he? What connection did he have to the message that had unnerved her? Claire was acutely aware that relinquishing her composure would be unwise. She forced herself to project confidence. Drawing closer, she discerned his face, familiar yet disconcerting, a reflection of a time when her life was far simpler but also more limiting. Jason, she muttered under her breath, a name that cut through her resolve. He had been an ambitious rival in art school, always quick to undermine her successes with a veneer of charm. With a mix of dread and determination, she approached him, carefully scrutinizing his demeanor. Claire. It's been too long, he said, extending his hand with a casualness that belied their turbulent history. She returned the handshake firmly. What brings you here? Oh, just making the rounds, you know how it is, he replied, his eyes glinting with an unreadable emotion. I've always admired your work. Your journey has been quite the spectacle. A chill danced down Claire's spine. His compliments felt tainted, layered with ulterior motives. Thanks, I appreciate it. But receiving that anonymous message pulled my focus in a different direction. His smile flickered, and she caught a hint of satisfaction. Ah, yes. Those kinds of things can stir the pot, can't they? You know, success in this industry can invite scrutiny, pressure. As he spoke, Claire noticed an edge to his voice, a suggestion that he thrived in the chaos. Are you implying something? She challenged, emboldened by her anger. Just stating a fact. Let us not pretend that everyone here has your best interests at heart, he replied, leaning in slightly as though to share a secret. You'll have to learn how to play the game, Claire. Every fiber of her being urged her to walk away, but she stood firm. And what makes you think I need to be taught? The words sliced through the air, a challenge thrown down, sparking a fire within her. A silence stretched between them, and Claire shifted, realizing this encounter had turned into more than just an exchange. It was a pivotal moment of self-assertion. Because, Claire, there are levels to this game, and you're still new to the table, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. It can be brutal out there, you have to be prepared for betrayal. She felt a mix of anger and hurt. Why should she allow him to dictate her worth? This was the moment she needed to shine, to demonstrate strength she had cultivated quietly. What I'm prepared for, she began, her conviction growing, is to defend my art and the stories I tell. If you're trying to intimidate me, it won't work. His expression shifted, surprise flashing in his eyes. In that instant, Claire recognized her own growth. The shy artist who yearned for approval had transformed into a person ready to confront the shadows of her past. She now understood that standing firm meant pushing against the doubts others projected onto her. Quite the transformation, Claire. I underestimated you, he said, a mix of admiration and annoyance gracing his features. The flicker of respect was as disconcerting as it was empowering. I've evolved, she replied, steeling herself against his gaze. And I'm not here to settle, I'm here to rise. With that, she stepped away, letting the moment wash over her, invigorated by her own strength. Claire's thoughts turned towards her next moves. She must delve deeper into her art and the motives swirling around the gallery. What did Jason really know? What other truths were hidden in the layers of this night? New possibilities loomed on the horizon as Claire set her sights resolutely ahead. The path she had chosen was fraught with challenges, but for the first time, Claire felt ready to navigate the conflict rather than flee from it. The greater battle lay ahead, uncharted and unpredictable. She was prepared to confront the truths still unraveling. With a nod to herself, she determined to uncover her own narrative in this tangled web of ambition and intrigue. Something told her that the next revelation would pave the way to her true strength, and it wouldn't come easy. What dark secrets lay buried in the heart of the gallery? Would her resolve hold against the tempest brewing on the horizon? Claire stood at the heart of the gallery, feeling the weight of the moment linger as she took a steadying breath. Jason had ignited a latent fire within her, challenging her not just professionally but personally. The confrontation had pushed her to redefine not only what she stood for but how far she was willing to go to protect it. As she moved away from him, the cacophony of chatter and laughter faded into a hum, and clarity settled around her like a shroud. She needed to return to her art, her sanctuary. It wasn't just a means of expression, it had become her weapon against doubt and fear. As she made her way toward her pieces on display, Claire pondered how to harness this newfound strength. Could standing up to Jason propel her art into a new stratosphere? She examined the canvas titled Dissonance, an exploration of the chaos within human emotions. The brushstrokes pulsed with energy, a reflection of her inner turmoil. Just like the layers of paint, her life had become a mosaic of experiences, some jarring, others harmonious. Who would she be as an artist if she painted through the lens of embodying conflict rather than shying away from it? Determined to channel her emotions, she dove into the crowd, seeking out kindred spirits, other artists, patrons, and collectors. Each conversation became an opportunity to push her craft further, to weave in her evolving narrative. Yet, even as she engaged with others, Jason's caution echoed in her mind. The industry was unpredictable, and rivals lurked in shadows as much as in plain sight. Soon, she found herself in front of a young curator named Lena, who had shown an interest in promoting emerging artists. Claire wasted no time, presenting her work with fervor, relaying the significance of her pieces beyond mere aesthetics. Lena's enthusiasm was palpable, a reflection of the passion Claire herself felt. "You have a powerful voice," Lena said, eyes sparkling. "But I sense there's more beneath the surface. Have you considered exploring themes of betrayal and loyalty? They're universal and deeply relatable." Those words struck a chord. Betrayal. It hung in the air around her. Just as Jason had suggested, there was a brutal reality about the art world that resonated with her personal battles. Claire's recollection of artistic rivalries was colored with incidents of unhealthy competition and undermining, all of which had simmered beneath her professional journey. Her sense of justice now sparked a question: how to transform these visceral experiences into something redemptive. She spent hours that night sketching ideas in a notebook, the fever of inspiration coursing through her veins. With each line, she wove in her past, her fears, her ambitions, a historical record that was as much a part of her as the paint on her canvases. Later, Claire retreated to a quieter corner for reflection, immersing herself in the energy of the night. Yet, the whisper of doubt lingered. Would new directions alienate her existing audience, or worse, jeopardize her hard-won reputation? Would producers still see her as an artist, or begin to doubt her integrity? The pressure built in her chest as she pondered these possibilities, but then, a realization washed over her. Every revolutionary piece of art stemmed from a place of vulnerability, from the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. She refused to stifle the urge to evolve. Growth meant placing herself at the center of her narrative, even if it was messy and fraught with risk. As the night drew to a close, Claire looked to the future, aware that her next steps demanded courage and unwavering resolve. The battle for authenticity wouldn't simply be against external confrontations, but also an inner struggle to trust her instincts and embrace her narrative, however tumultuous. What if she embraced her vulnerability in her next exhibition, weaving a narrative that mirrored her own struggles? Could she produce pieces that reflected betrayal, a response to Jason's provocation while simultaneously breaking free from fear? The possibility sent a thrill. Through her, the potential was electric, but with every risk came new opponents. Obstacles would undoubtedly arise, as they always had. How to navigate them and still rise to the occasion became her next mission. Claire felt the static energy of the gallery around her, knowing this defining moment was only the beginning. The challenge lay ahead. How could she unveil her true self without losing the armor she'd spent so long constructing? Uncertainty hung heavy in the air, yet the conviction flickered within her she wasn't finished yet. As she stepped out into the cool night, the realization came crashing in. Her greatest reveal awaited, an unveiling that would require far more than art. What price was she willing to pay for true authenticity in a world that thrived on facades? Claire awoke the next morning with a heightened sense of purpose, her mind racing from the previous night's revelations. The shimmering thoughts of betrayal, loyalty, and artistic evolution merged into a single narrative thread, pulling her towards her next creative endeavor. She felt stripped bare, no longer hiding behind the comfortable but constricting armor of her previous work. Would the world accept this new narrative, or would it lash out in condemnation? As daylight streamed through her studio windows, it illuminated the scattered canvases that had once echoed her past struggles. With renewed vigor, Claire set about transforming her workspace into a war room for creativity. She began organizing her sketches, instinctively separating the pieces that echoed her old self from those that would capture her newfound perspective. Each brushstroke had to be imbued with raw honesty, rendering her emotional turmoil into tangible form. Her first piece, tentatively titled "Fractured Loyalty," loomed large in her mind. It would act as a visceral declaration, embodying the intricacies of trust betrayed and faith restored. As she stood in front of the blank canvas, Claire felt the pressure of expectation swell again. Would this exploration put her at risk of being misunderstood? What if viewers saw only sensationalism, failing to grasp her emotional landscape? Each hesitation was a voice of doubt, casting shadows over her resolve. Claire ground her teeth, grappling with the internal pressure. What she had once viewed as weaknesses, her vulnerabilities, her history of betrayal, could be the primary colors in her palette. She dipped her brush into deep hues, letting loose a series of strokes that were both fervent and reckless. This was not merely art, it was catharsis, a confrontation with the chaos she had felt, an unveiling of the fear that often lived next to creativity. As she painted, her mind occasionally drifted back to Jason, his earlier provocations swirling in her thoughts. He was an opponent, yes, but perhaps an unlikely catalyst for her growth. She recalled his piercing gaze, the doubt he had cast on her career, and suddenly that doubt transformed into a fierce fire igniting her resolve. She wouldn't allow anyone, especially Jason, to dictate her narrative. The days passed rapidly, filled with grueling hours at the canvas. Claire explored deeply personal themes: isolation from peers, the sting of being outshined, and the internal dialogues of self-doubt that clamored for attention. Each stroke pulled a feeling to the surface, each layer revealing a deeper story entwined within the fabric of her life. She began to see the exhibition not merely as an event, but rather the stage for a personal revolution. But just as she was on the brink of a breakthrough, interruptions began. Emails from galleries seeking to exhibit her older works flooded her inbox, insisting she focus on the styles and subjects that originally captured attention. Rivals from her past circled like hawks, keen to snatch away her moment of truth before it bloomed into something more. The pressure felt like a vice tightening around her chest, and doubts resurfaced. Was she strong enough to resist the pull of conformity in a world that demanded it? Amidst this chaos, Claire faced a decision point that rocked her to her core. to forge ahead with her unconventional approach, risking alienation and failure, or to retreat into the safety of commercial success, sacrificing her authenticity for acclaim. The stakes were higher than ever. She could feel the energy within her tremble with possibility and fear. As days blended into nights, Claire realized that the heart of the matter lay in embracing her full self, paradoxes and all. Suddenly it was about more than just art, it was about her relationships, her inner battles, and her resilience. She found herself questioning, what truly defines an artist? Was it their ability to follow trends, or the courage to defy expectations? She stepped back from her canvas, staring at the swirling patterns of color and emotion that danced before her. In that moment, she understood that exposing her hidden truths could unearth entirely new connections with her audience, a risk worth taking. Yet, the gallery walls loomed in her mind, a reminder that the true battle lay ahead. How would she unveil her art, her story, her authentic self, amidst the mounting pressures from the outside world? Claire took a deep breath, knowing her greatest creation was not just about art. It was about her journey, her reckoning. The moment of truth beckoned a judgment of both her art and her identity. With each rising sun, the countdown to unveil the rawness of her soul began. As she prepared for the exhibition's opening, Claire felt the tension electrify the air around her. Could she stand firm amidst the onslaught of opinions, maintain her voice, and still leave room for growth? The ultimate test was coming, and she wondered, would her courageous leap into authenticity land her in validation or condemnation? Claire stood at the entrance of the expansive gallery, her heart racing as she caught glimpses of her work adorning the walls. The exhibition, aptly named, Fractured Loyalty, was not merely a showcase, it had become a manifestation of her journey, a culmination of vulnerability and strength that thawed the chains of her past. As guests began to filter into the space, the familiar rush of adrenaline surged through her. Excitement and anxiety coalesced into an overwhelming sense of purpose. This was her stage. She had chosen this moment to present not just her art but the very essence of her experiences, the betrayals that had shaped her, the fears that once immobilized her, and the revelations she had unearthed through creative expression. The pieces resonated with raw emotion, bold strokes and contrasted colors represented her struggles, while fine details signified the beauty blossoming from chaos. As attendees paused to examine the work, she noticed their reactions, whispers of recognition, nods of understanding, and eyes widening in awe. A flood of warmth enveloped Claire as she witnessed the stories written in her art speak to those who gazed upon it. Then, just as she caught her breath, she spotted Jenna across the room. With a determined stride, Claire approached her mentor, who stood captivated by a painting that mirrored Claire's own struggles. Jenna, Claire greeted softly, but with an undercurrent of confidence. "You've done it, Claire. This is exquisite." Jenna's praise felt like a warm embrace, validating the arduous journey Claire had undertaken. "Thank you," Claire replied, a genuine smile breaking through her initial apprehension. "I took your advice to heart. This time, I focused on authenticity over mere aesthetics." "Your voice is powerful, it transcends mere artistry," Jenna responded with a knowing glimmer in her eyes. "You've allowed your vulnerabilities to be a part of your narrative. You're not just presenting art, you're presenting truth." As she absorbed Jenna's words, Claire felt the last vestiges of trepidation dissipate. She realized that this exhibition was more than just a platform, it was her liberation. She had been faced with choices that tested both her resolve and her growth, and now here she stood validated, promising to defend her legacy. As the night unfolded, she spoke with fellow artists and collectors, sharing the inspiration behind each piece. Each conversation deepened her connection to her work and further anchored her identity as an artist. She listened intently as others revealed their own battles, creating a shared narrative that transcended the gallery walls. Midway through the evening, Claire noticed Jason lurking at the periphery. A part of her recoiled, recalling their previous encounter, the veiled threats that had peppered their conversation. But as she caught his eye, she felt a wave of newfound empowerment wash over her. There was no longer a trace of fear, she had shifted from the role of prey to predator. A thought flickered in her mind, this was not simply a victory over him, it was a triumph over herself. She no longer needed validation from individuals like Jason, nor from the shadows that had once clouded her vision. She had forged her path. Later, as the night wound down and the crowd thinned, Claire found a quiet moment to reflect. She looked around the gallery, now filled with the remnants of a successful opening. The mingling scents of fresh paint and coffee blended seamlessly, echoing the battles she had fought, the fear, the frustration, the triumph. Her heart swelled with gratitude for the life she was beginning to create. In that silence, she felt a surge of clarity and purpose. Claire committed herself to continually harness her experiences, every bruise and breakthrough, as fuel for her artistic journey. "This is my narrative," she whispered to herself, feeling solid confidence beneath her words. As she prepared to leave, Jenna sought her out. "Let's get coffee soon," she suggested, a smile playing on her lips. "I'd love to see how you continue to evolve. You're destined for greatness, Claire." With a head full of dreams and a heart brimming with sincerity, Claire nodded. She had achieved clarity and purpose in her artistry. She was no longer the shadowed figure of doubt. She was Claire Miller, an entrepreneur, an artist ready to conquer both the industry and herself. And so it was that Claire walked away, not just an artist but a woman transformed, her legacy firmly planted in a ground fertile with ambition. She understood the stakes and embraced the challenge ahead, knowing she would rise regardless of what lay in wait. In this moment of grand realization, Claire knew her story had only just begun. Each brushstroke was a testament to overcoming, each moment a precursor to the heights yet to be reached. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes all the difference. Comment your reactions and theories about Claire's journey. The transformation is just as much yours as it is hers. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories know that their support shines the brightest.